In my previous breakdowns, we've spoken to the various nods that this show has given us all season long, whether it be Jaws or Halloween or even in last week's penultimate episode, feeling like Stephen King's miniseries, The Storm of the Century. Now, without giving away the ending, I would say that this finale kind of reminded me of Stephen King's The Mist and how things played out with characters like Ruth and Kenny. Welcome back to my channel, everybody. Today we are taking a deep dive into the final episode, episode 10, the season 1 finale of Widow's Bay. That's right, it was announced last week that we are indeed getting a season 2, which is the best news ever because the way things end in this finale, it definitely leaves us with so many more questions to explore. With all that said, get your tea bags ready as we'll be discussing how Ruth is harder to kill than the boogeyman as we are here to break it all down, including the ending, sharing some theories for season 2, and so much more. Full spoilers ahead. We open this finale with Tom desperately trying to end the curse as he makes an illegal pit stop at the local doctor's office. He's digging through Ruth's file, specifically hoping for a cancer diagnosis, looking for a moral out to justify ending her life to break this curse. Now at first, Tom can't find anything that's going to help him because her files basically show that she's in incredible shape for her age. But Tom does find a medical note that warns about a dangerous mix of drugs, as he realizes that mixing these meds could peacefully end Ruth's life and again put an end to this curse. Now we can see the burden on Tom's face as he drives to her house. Now as Tom arrives and he sits outside before going in, Patricia radios him, trying one last time to stop him from going through with this as he hears Wick in the background telling him to follow through. Tom tells Patricia to keep the people safe in the shelter and to watch over Evan as he walks up to Ruth's door as he's accepted the role as the Grim Reaper. He knocks and calls her name several times before noticing that the door is unlocked as Tom walks in. Hoping to maybe find her on the ground dying out of fear and maybe having a heart attack because of the storm outside, as Tom hears heavy breathing coming from the other room. As Tom enters the room, he finds 84-year-old Ruth on the treadmill being very active and healthy while listening to music. Ruth is caught by surprise to find Tom in her house for the very first time, but she's immediately happy under the belief that he's here to take her to the shelter after thinking that everyone had forgotten about her. Ruth goes on to pack some things, but Tom, obviously having his reasons for being there, suggests that they stay a little bit longer since the roads are bad. Now, while this was probably the darkest episode of the season, it still managed to have some hilarious moments sprinkled throughout, and this being one of them. Now, as Ruth goes to go get both of them some towels from upstairs, we get to see just how healthy Ruth is as she's skipping towards the stairs and she sprints up the stairs like she's 40 years younger in age, and the look on Tom's face being like disappointed because of how healthy she is was just so hilarious to me. Before moving on, I have to get this out of the way now. Kay Cullen's performance in this finale was nothing short of amazing. She not only delivered the laughs, as she's done all season long, but the drama bits that we see later on in this episode and these moments of kindness was just perfectly portrayed. I know some people were hoping that maybe Ruth was going to be evil and she was secretly orchestrating plans behind the scenes, and maybe she's been the one that was sacrificing people over the years and feeding it to the island, but I'm just glad that the show didn't go that route. Making her genuinely kind and vibrant and just such a nice person makes Tom's situation even more complex. If she were evil, his choice would be so much easier, but by making her innocent, the show forces us to look at Tom and his morality. Now, back at the town hall in the island shelter, we see that Wick and Patricia have their own problems to deal with as they try to play the roles of peacekeepers and try to maintain order and keep things calm while rationing supplies to give out to the 137 people in the shelter. But leave it to Rosemary to give them a pep talk that doesn't go anywhere about how the person that worked in her position before her told her to never go down the shelter, and later on, we find out why. Meanwhile, Bashir's wife Shell is told that everything's okay with her pregnancy, but in reality, the doctor pulls Bashir aside and tells him that the baby is expected to arrive that night, despite being told that the baby won't be arriving until another 7 weeks. Now, this is the moment that the show kind of pivots the other stakes in this episode and puts it where Bashir is also under pressure and has to protect his own child or unborn child in this situation, as he doesn't want his baby to be born on his island because obviously he'll never be able to leave. Now back at Ruth's, she puts on some tea for her and Tom. Notice the picture of Evan that's shown on the refrigerator a few times in this episode, which was a little indicator that Evan means a lot more to her than just some kid that she babysits every now and then. Tom takes a look at her calendar and sees her everyday routine, as Ruth is always up to something. She's always busy and even makes time to help her neighbor go up and down her own porch every single day. This not only continues to show Tom just how healthy and active she is and how she still seems to have plenty of life ahead of her, but also it shows how generous and caring Ruth is as a person, again, making his decision on killing her even more difficult. Now, after seeing the calendar, Tom goes to the bathroom, doubting this whole situation and of course basing it all on Rosemary's genealogy, as he calls Patricia but has no luck in reaching her. Now, as Tom looks in the mirror, he's reminded why he's here, as he sees Ruth's medication in the cabinet, and it's the same medication that was said not to be mixed together. Now, Ruth prepares her tea as Tom mistakenly picks a batch that he thinks sets the mood best for Ruth, which is calm and soothing, but unfortunately for him, it's going to take 27 minutes to make, as Ruth takes him on a house tour while they wait, making what he has to do sit with him even longer. She takes him to see the room where Evan stays at when he sleeps over, and Tom gets to see the emergency ladder that Evan requested just in case of a fire, aka this is his way of sneaking out at night. Now, to pass the time, Ruth shows Tom her photo album filled with old memories, including her old bosses and her ex-boyfriend, who she says was bit by an animal and he would later become that same animal, which to me is just another Tuesday in Widow's Bay. She also shows Tom all the men and women who have made a pass at her back in her heyday, including the pastor who she looked up to like a father. Speaking of father, Ruth tells Tom that her father built the house that she stays in, as he learns that he unfortunately passed away because something in the lake took his life. Despite having experienced a lot of loss throughout her life, Ruth remains optimistic because growing up in Widow's Bay has taught her how to weather the storms, which is the big theme of this episode. Characters managing to survive in the face of death. Now, Tom uses this opportunity to offer up a scenario to Ruth, which he brings up: what if there was a way to stop all the bad things from happening in Widow's Bay? As he goes over the meaning behind the trolley problem with her. What if Ruth had the chance to stop all the horrible things from happening by killing one person to save the town? As Ruth answers by simply saying no, she wouldn't be able to live with herself by making the choice to killing someone. Instead, Ruth would rather live with the consequences that life isn't about controlling bad things that life throws at you. She goes on to share a quote with Tom about Violence in the World by Tennessee Williams.
The world is violent and material. It will have its way with you. Can't read that. Can't read that part. Can't read. Oh, here it is. We live in a perpetually burning building, and what we must save from it all the time is love.
Now, Tom is surprised to learn that Ruth actually worries about him because of how he avoids the truth, as she brings up how he's been wanting to make Widow's Bay into something that'll never be. Now, this is something I live by in my personal life, as Ruth goes on to tell Tom that life is filled with ugly and beauty and comes with terrible glory, as she says that it just needs to be accepted for what it is. Now, we can see that Tom is starting to change his mind again, but then he takes notice of a particular item in Ruth's belongings, and that item is no other than the brooch that Sarah gave Francis that ended up being passed down as a family heirloom, which confirms that Rosemary's genealogy test was actually true, and this being another sign for Tom to continue his plans to protecting his son. Now, as the tea is ready, Tom goes to get it, and we get our second shot of Evan's picture on the refrigerator, which again is another hint of how important he's going to be later to this episode, as we watch Tom crushes up Ruth's medicine that isn't supposed to be mixed together as he puts it in her tea, and he hands it to her, and we watch Ruth begins to drink it. What I really loved about that previous scene is how it highlighted Ruth's view on life. To me, this scene perfectly captured what makes this show so good, especially when it comes to the writing, because for me, the tragedy in that scene wasn't just that Ruth might be dying, it's that she spent her final moments showing Tom the beauty of life. But then again, this is why I love this show, because if you take a step back and look at the larger picture, knowing that we've been following Tom's journey throughout this season, we as the audience are now being faced with the question, is Tom really protecting his son, or has he just become another monster in a bay full of them? Now, back at the shelter, while passing out blankets, Patricia finds a note that reads, "If you're reading this, I'm already dead." Now, I could be wrong, but I feel like this was a moment in which the island played a part into the fear and the anxiety that we're about to witness with the people in the shelter, because as we'll find out later, the island feeds off of the fear of others. As things get more intense, one of the townspeople asks Patricia how much longer they can expect to stay in the shelter, like she's some type of meteorologist, as the old-timer from last week's episode makes things even worse by saying how in past storms they have lasted a lot longer than usual than what's going on the mainland. But Patricia holds it together, playing it cool, reassuring them that they have everything under control and they have everything they need to ride out this storm. Now, Patricia has Dale go get some card games to entertain the townspeople to pass the time and distract them. But what Dale is about to stumble upon is something much more darker. Now, Dale finds a hidden room, and inside that room, he finds these old film reels, and one of them is labeled "For Them" as he begins to play it. Now, in this, a man speaks to the offering, who has been chosen by a committee of their peers after a very rigorous selection process.
Maybe you've committed a crime, or owe a debt to society, or have been found wanting in some way. Although you'll never know, take comfort in the fact that there is an absolutely unassailable reason you're here. Accept your fate and take pride. Your sacrifice will save countless members of our community from needless suffering. Thank you again for your sacrifice. Widow's Bay thanks you.
Now, this answers a question that I had in my last week's breakdown, which was, who has been keeping up with the hidden room with the chair and the metal doors? To me, this video confirms that there are people within the town who have been in the past and most likely in the present, they've been keeping up the ritual of feeding the island to end the cycles of the curse. But now my question is, does this community secretly still exist within the town? Now, back with the others, Bashir tries to ask Patricia about Tom's whereabouts, but she does her best to avoid him, at least for now. Meanwhile, leave it to Evan's friend PJ to get him into some mess, as he has Evan and his new crush Kelly follow him into a secret passage that takes them underneath the shelter as Kenny spots them and follows them. Now, before we continue this week's breakdown, let's take a moment to hear from this week's sponsor for the video, and that being Factor. Now, who out there can relate to this? Hunger strikes and you're exhausted. There's something healthy in the fridge that you should be making, but you just don't have it in you. Luckily for me, eating healthy isn't a willpower problem, it's actually a setup problem until I found Factor. I've recently been on a healthy kick, especially with the summertime coming out. You want to be outside, you want to be as healthy as you can be, and Factor has really solved my setup problem with fully prepared meals designed by dietitians and crafted by chefs, delivered right to my front door. With Factor, I'm hitting my nutritional goals this season without the planning, the grocery runs, or even the cooking. Some of the top things I love about Factor is the nutrition, the taste, and more importantly, the convenience. Factor meals are built around your goals, whether that's weight loss, overall nutrition, more protein, or GLP-1 support. Now, for those out there that's really into working out and looking for strength and workout recovery, check out Factor's Muscle Pro collection. Every meal is crafted with functional ingredients such as lean proteins, colorful veggies, whole foods, and healthy fats. Factor bans 175 plus ingredients, no artificial colors or sweeteners, no high fructose corn syrup, no refined refined seed oils. Just nutrient-dense food. Now, when it comes to the taste, I mean, we're talking fresh, never frozen, over 100 rotating weekly meals, including globally inspired flavors like Mediterranean and Asian, so there's always something new to look forward to. You all have to try the newly launched ready-to-eat salads with vibrant ingredients like elote corn and miso edamame. Plus 70+ add-ons to round out your nutrition, from green juices to peanut butter energy bites. And again, we gotta talk about the convenience because it's incredible. It's ready in 2 minutes. Factor shops, preps, cooks, and delivers straight to your door, so you have more time to enjoy the things that you love. Like I said up top, I'm a big fan of the convenience, the flavors, and it's just been a game changer for me. It's been so convenient for me, and I feel like I use this, and I just know you all would love it, and you all should use it as well. Now here's the best part. Head over to factormeals.com/moviefiles50 off and use my code MovieFiles50 off to get 50% off and free daily greens per box. Now that's with new subscriptions only while supplies last to September 27th of 2026. Again, head over to factormeals.com/moviefiles50 off and use my code MovieFiles50 off to get 50% off and free daily greens per box. Again, that's for new subscriptions only while supplies last until September 27th of 2026. Thank you again to Factor for sponsoring this week's video. Now, for anyone looking for all the benefits they can offer you all, and also if you're interested in helping the channel, check out the link in the pinned comments. With that being said, let's get back to the breakdown. Now, Patricia and Wick pass out food and water, and within minutes, people notice that the food and water are filled with mold, and they begin to fight. Bashir sees this and continues to feel the pressure of his baby being born on this island and being born in this chaos as he goes to get Shell some water from the kitchen. Now, Patricia and Ruth are in the kitchen, and of course, leave it to Ruth to run her mouth as she brings up what she did with Ruth with doing the genealogy test. Now, Bashir demands Patricia tell him the truth about where Tom is. Now, we don't see what she tells him, but it's clear, as we'll find out later on, that she told him that Tom's at Ruth's house to end the curse. Speaking of Ruth, after drinking the tea from Tom, she's slowly falling asleep, but Tom believes that she's possibly dying. He goes on to tell Ruth about how Lauren would try to tell him stories about the island, and he would basically laugh her off and tease her about them. Deep down, he wanted to believe it, but it wasn't until the incident with the ferry that he knew the curse about the island was maybe real, but years later, he still brought the tourists to the island. He told himself that it was for Evan, and selfishly, it was for himself as well, and now the families on this island are now at risk because of him. Tom sees Ruth is out cold and believes she's possibly dead, as he apologizes and says that he just had to make things right. Now, as Tom goes to confirm that Ruth has passed on, he realizes that she was just taking a cat nap as she goes on to tell him more stories about her past. Now, back with Evan and PJ and his crush Kelly, who gives him a kiss, they continue to go down the underground tunnel. And of course, they find the mysterious secret room with the chair and the metal door. Now, back upstairs, chaos continues as the lights begin to flicker and a creepy audio plays about keeping calm and telling them not to beg.
It's time. Listen to your facilitator. Move forward. Do not beg.
What the fuck?
Meanwhile, Dale watching the film now labeled "For You" this time, this being for the members of the committee, as he tells the members watching to be strong and to remember that it's all for the greater good for survival. Dale watches this group of blindfolded townspeople being lined up to be sacrificed in the same room as the shelter, hence the audio that played earlier. The instructor in the film says that the bad times won't end until the covenant is honored and honored fully. A life for a life, one soul for each bell toll. Remember that for later. Now, back with the others, the lights are now completely out as Patricia temporarily manages to calm everyone down, but after watching the film, Dale comes out of the room and tells everyone in the shelter that this is a death trap as everyone begins to full out panic. Now, back with Ruth and Tom, now feeling like he can't go through with this, he is now in another room and he tries to reach out to Patricia to check on his son, but all Tom hears is people screaming in fear. Hearing these screams from the shelter would be the thing that needed Tom to get back on track, as he knows now that he has to take a maybe more aggressive approach in killing Ruth to assure his son's safety. Tom now has a pillow in his hand, preparing to suffocate Ruth as he sits next to her. He tells Ruth, who's slowly going in and out of consciousness, that she's a good person and doesn't deserve what's about to happen to her. Now, Ruth wakes up and tells him about an affair that she had with a married man when she was 40 and how she was fully aware of the fact that he was married, but she still went along with it. Now, Ruth wants to prove that maybe she isn't that good of a person, as she tells Tom that she wanted the man to leave his wife for her, but he wouldn't do so. But as it would turn out, Ruth would end up pregnant and hid this from others and decided to keep the baby. The man would raise a child with his wife, and Ruth would watch her child grow up from afar. Now, unfortunately, Ruth's daughter would later pass on, but Ruth was able to see so many things that her daughter would experience in life, including falling in love with Tom. Yes, as I predicted last week, Ruth had a secret child, and it was Lauren, Tom's dead wife. Ruth would visit Lauren at the home after her incident and told her that she was her secret mom, which explains the story about what Lauren was talking about in the letter to Evan. Now, as I also predicted, Ruth stayed in Tom's life to be in her grandson's life, and that obviously being Evan. Now, it would appear that the drugs played a part into Ruth telling the truth that she's kept a secret for most of her life, as the show still manages to throw in the comedy at the right moments during this huge moment by having Ruth say that the pull-out method just doesn't work at all.
Pull-out method just doesn't work.
Now, Tom knocks the tea out of her hand as she tries to take another sip from it and yells at her who else has she told this secret. As she responds, she's told no one else, as Tom realizes that Evan will never be able to leave the island now because he's a descendant of Richard Warren. Now, Tom realizes that he almost killed his mother-in-law and Ruth as he picks her up to take her to the doctor to get the mixture of pills out of her system. As he lifts her up, we hear the door opens as Tom yells no and to stop, and we hear a gunshot goes off. It's Bashir. He shot her because he learned the truth from Patricia and he knew Tom wouldn't be able to go through with what was planned. Bashir was also under the belief that Ruth was the last Warren descendant, and if he killed her, he would be protecting his own newborn child. Tom is obviously shocked by what just happened and tells Bashir that she wasn't the last descendant. As Bashir points the gun at Tom, wanting to know who this last descendant is, as Tom lies, he says he doesn't know, but obviously he knows that it's his son. Speaking of, we cut back to the secret ritual sacrifice room where Kenny finds Evan and his friends and demands they leave immediately. As they leave, PJ stupidly locks Kenny inside and they run off. Evan stays behind and tries to open the door and help Kenny, but he hears Kenny screaming inside for help as something opens the doors and pulls Kenny inside. Now, as this is happening, back with Tom and Bashir, they both notice the storm has ended because not knowing this, but the island has just been fed, as Tom sees that Ruth is still alive. And like I said up top, you can't kill Ruth, y'all. She is as tough as nails and she is as hard as to kill as the boogeyman. Now, this being the last time that we see Bashir and Ruth and obviously Shell, his wife. So my question is, do you all believe that Shell had the baby? If so, is there some type of loophole that since the curse was temporarily stopped because Kenny was fed to the island, is their baby gonna be okay? But speaking of being okay, do you all believe that Ruth will end up surviving with the bad mix of medication in her system, but of course also being shot? Did she manage to weather the storm, and will we see Ruth in season 2? Meanwhile, back with the others in the shelter, they also hear that the storm has ended as Patricia and Wick think that the curse is officially over. Now, back in the tunnels, Evan notices the door has unlocked itself as he looks inside to find Kenny's flashlight on the floor, and the doors are slightly open as Kenny is gone, again having been fed to the island. Now, a couple of things I want to mention about that last sequence there. First off, it's crazy what happened to Kenny, RIP. He seemed to be such a nice guy, but I can't help but to think of maybe his death was foreshadowed back in episode 5. Remember, episode 5 was about Tom going on that drug trip, and we first met Kenny when he was gathering up the trash bins, and he had said that the trash bins were being full. Was that the show hinting at Kenny being like not obviously a trash bin, but being eaten and fulfilling the island, at least temporarily? Now, I also want to talk about this. Does anyone else have the feeling that maybe PJ purposely took Evan and Kelly down to the room to have them be sacrificed? Now, we know that it was said that PJ wasn't born on the island, but do we know that to be true? It's been said how bad of an influence PJ is, and I can't help but to think about when Reverend Rhys had came out of the forest and had said that there's evil here, and he looked directly at PJ. Also, don't forget, PJ was the one who took Evan and his friends to the boogeyman's house, and now he's responsible to what happened to Kenny. Now look, obviously this can all be a coincidence, but I think it's possible that maybe in season 2, it's going to be revealed that maybe PJ is a part of that secret committee who's been feeding the island for all these years, and I do believe that he planned to sacrifice Evan and Kelly before Kenny arrived. Again, I don't think PJ was just doing some harmless prank. I think he's a part of that secret committee, y'all. But again, I think that's something we can look forward to when it comes to season 2. Now, as we wrap up this finale, it's the next morning. We find the storm has ended as Tom throws Sarah's brooch into the water, which to him is his way of solidifying that this curse is officially over. Now, as we see Evan in the car smiling at his dad, thinking that everything's going to go back to normal, that everything's fine, we hear the bells of the church ringing, and they ring 8 times. Remember what that film said, the island will make its needs known. Kenny's sacrifice wasn't enough for the island and only temporarily stopped the curse. Again, I go back to what the film said. 1 soul for each bell toll, meaning that the curse isn't over and 8 sacrifices are now being requested by this haunted island, leading us into the already announced season 2 of Widow's Bay. So what does that ending mean for season 2? Now, before we get into some season 2 thoughts, I do have a question about something that wasn't addressed, or at least I don't think it was addressed, and that is at the end of episode 9, we heard Mitch screaming on the phone to Tom that it's all gone. Now, was Mitch referring to the storm like wiping out his restaurant, or will this be answered in season 2? Also, going back to season 1 and some questions that weren't answered, which I'm fine with because we're getting to season 2, but going back to Reverend Rhys, what did he find and what led him to taking his own life? Another big question that goes all the way back to episode 1 of season 1, who was that 43rd passenger? Now, could it be the guy that was in the promotional videos of Widow's Bay, that was the shadowy figure, and also being the character that's in the main poster of the show who is highlighted here? Is this the human form of the island? Also, I go back to something that's a little bit small that may or may not carry on to season 2, but I hope it does, and that is, what about Jerry and Wick and the situation with her brother? But let's get back to the big stuff for season 2, and that's the important stuff, and that is these new 8 sacrifices. Who are they going to be? Is the island going to be more aggressive, more demanding in being fed? Will the town finally all collectively realize the truth, or will the secret committee just keep finding ways to appease the island? And if there is some secret committee that's still amongst the town people, does that include PJ? Is there other characters that we met? Like maybe, I don't know, Rosemary might be a part of them, right? But I, again, believe that PJ and there are others that are still keeping up with the rituals. And it's just like people are being pawns and being manipulated by something much darker. So when it comes to season 2, I can't wait to get more of the comedy, but also more of the horrors and see what other nods does season 2 pay homage to. And of course, the unraveling of potentially this mysterious committee and understanding the full extent of the island's powers and find out if there's any way to break this horrifying cycle. We also can't forget about Shell's baby. Did she have the baby? Could that innocent life be another target as a fresh soul to the island? Oh man, I can't wait for season 2 because the possibilities are endless and oh so terrifying. Now, before we wrap up, just my general impressions and overall thoughts of season 1. I thought this was just an excellent season of television. This to me also was an example of, yes, we're getting to season 2. I'm excited for that, but this season 1 can be its own thing. It can stand on its own 2 feet, right? There's a beginning, middle, and an end, and they left us with things to look forward to. But again, I just thought this was just such a fulfilling experience with this first season. It was truly a masterclass in a slow burn horror with great character development. It created atmosphere, created dread, but also the comedic beats were peppered in so perfectly. The performances were outstanding from the entire cast. The way the show, again, was able to manage in the folklore into the mystery was just so damn brilliant. Each episode to me left us with questions, but also created all these theories and made us so interested in what's going to happen. And it just continued to satisfy us. And I think this was also going back to Masterclass. This show did such a great job of showing us that you can still have so much good storytelling within a 30-minute, 35-minute runtime, right? You don't need filler episodes. Like, this show was so effective in delivering horror, having stakes, again, having good laughs. And I cannot wait to see what season 2 has to offer us, and I hopefully will get an announcement on when can we expect season 2, and I hope that it's sooner rather than later, because man, I love season 1 of Widow's Bay. With all that being said, that will conclude my breakdown of Widow's Bay episode 10 season 1. Thank you all for watching or listening to this week's breakdown. Before we wrap things up, I want to take this time to thank every single one of you all that's been watching these videos, supporting these videos, leaving your thoughts, your theories, your predictions. I love this show. I cannot wait for season 2. I am just more than confident that this will be one of my favorite shows of this year because it was just so damn good. But again, you all made it so much more special because of you all's interactions. Also, shout out to Apple. Shout out to the actors. Shout out to the creators, the writers, the directors for giving us such a fantastic show. Now, if you all were watching this breakdown on YouTube, thank you all for the support. Do me a favor, man. If you enjoyed this coverage, if you enjoyed this breakdown, please consider liking the video, hyping up the video, which allows us to get in front of new viewers. Which, speaking of new viewers, consider sharing the video and letting people know that you love the show, you love talking about the show with others. And last but not least, as we get closer to 100,000 subscribers, which is so crazy to think, I would really appreciate it if you all can stick around, check out my other videos that I make on this channel by subscribing to the channel today. Now, if you all are listening to this via podcast, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, or wherever you all get your podcasts from, please leave your thoughts about this finale, your thoughts about the season, your predictions, your theories, what you all hope to see in season 2. Let me know in the comments below. Consider following the podcast, and I would love it if you all can give me a 5-star review. Alrighty, y'all, this is the end of this chapter, but I will be covering many more shows and movies for the rest of this year. So again, stick around and support the channel. But again, thank you all for the support. Don't forget, you all are awesome. Stay safe, and I'll catch you all on the next breakdown.